Welcome to the Crunch Time YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about how the Los Angeles Lakers have gotten a lot better this offseason after winning an NBA championship a few months ago. Let's get right into the video. The Los Angeles Lakers won a championship in the bubble. Very interesting season, but they had a lot of moves they had to do in the offseason if they wanted to repeat. A lot of their key players, their deals were up. They were going to have to make a few changes as they knew this team that they couldn't just run it back. There's a lot of players they had to get rid of, a lot of new players they had to get. And we're going to look into some of the players they're able to sign. But first, let's look at the players who they let walk or got rid of. So, the main players who they let walk were Dwight Howard, Rondo, and Avery Bradley. Bradley ended up going to the Miami Heat. Rondo went to the Hawks, and then Dwight Howard went to the Sixers. All of those players were important people on the team. Avery Bradley, he didn't play in the bubble, but when he was playing in the regular season, he was pretty important. Dwight, he did get less time in the playoffs as he wasn't playable a lot of the time just because he can't really shoot outside the paint. And he can only really guard these big centers. But Rondo, he was probably the most underrated player on this team. Without him, they probably don't win a championship. He was just crucial to this team. They also ended up trading away Danny Green and JaVale McGee. Those two, they were not as great for the Lakers, but still were on the team. And that brings us to the players who they added to the team. So first, let's talk about KCP, who they ended up signing to a re-extension. He signed, I believe, a 3-year deal to $40 million. That's not a bad deal for both sides. He's probably going to be part of that team after LeBron leaves, maybe for a year or so, but he really proved himself in the playoffs. If he doesn't show up in that first quarter of Game 1, the Lakers probably lose that game. He was really important, and when the rest of the team was struggling, he kind of was a player they could go to. But looking at more of the players who they added and new people coming to the team, the first player they got was Dennis Schroeder, and I believe that's probably going to be the most impactful. Besides Rondo, the Lakers never really had consistent guard play. That was always their issue. Like, they were playing KCP most of the time, and he was pretty inconsistent. That's why he's not getting paid like a $15-20 million amount per year. So adding Dennis Schroeder is really going to help them. He's always been a good defensive guard. His offense has always been a little inconsistent, but he had a really good year this year in Oklahoma City. So I doubt he's not going to repeat that. He's playing with LeBron now, and we know a lot of players benefit from playing alongside LeBron. The Lakers also added another guard in Wesley Matthews, kind of their Avery Bradley replacement. They didn't really have a need for Avery Bradley, so they were able to let him walk. Got another shooter in Wesley Matthews. Probably going to take Danny Green's role. Green wasn't too consistent. Wesley's probably going to be a solid player for the Lakers. I don't think he's going to be starting, and if he isn't starting, he'll probably be a sixth man. He'll be sixth man or like your starting guard, small forward, depending on what you consider LeBron, a point guard or small forward. But the Lakers did make sure to get a few centers. They did trade away Dwight and JaVale McGee, but they signed 2 other centers. The most important of the two is Montrezl Harrell. This is interesting considering they add him from the Clippers. They kind of steal him and take him away. The Clippers did get Serge Ibaka, who in my opinion is better than Montrezl Harrell. But Harrell on the Lakers is going to be really good for them. He's a high-energy player, scores off a fast break, good in pick and roll. The only issue I see with Harrell is he might not be the best player for the locker room. And we saw the Clippers locker room, they kind of fell apart last year. And we saw how important having a good locker room was. The Lakers never really had that issue, or it never really became as talked about as the Clippers. They were able to have a healthy locker room. Clippers had many issues with that. But they also signed Marc Gasol. I don't think he's going to be doing too much for the Lakers. He is getting on the older side, and he definitely was regressing. You saw in the playoffs, he was not doing as great. He is getting older. We know that. He's not going to be like 2012, 11 Marc Gasol, 2013 Gasol, who won the Defensive Player of the Year. But he should be good off the bench for around 15, 20 minutes a game. So now let's just talk a little bit about what the Lakers' expectations are for next season. And that's obviously to repeat. Right now, the Lakers are definitely the favorites. Probably the most talented team in the league. There's not really any team that matches up against the Lakers that great. Assuming they re-sign Anthony Davis, he's not signed yet at the recording of this video. But guarding Anthony Davis and LeBron, they're two of the most dominant players. Like, they can shoot from anywhere on the court. And, like, Anthony Davis, he's probably a better shooter than LeBron, but he's just so good inside, good free throw shooter. And the Lakers probably want to re-sign him to a larger deal than just like 2 or so years or however long LeBron's going to stay. Davis probably doesn't want to stay here for the rest of his career just because if you're not able to get someone other than LeBron, you don't want to stay like he was in New Orleans for such a long time, had no help other than Drew Holiday. But Lakers, going back to their matchups, no one really can match up with them. Like, the Warriors can't match up with the Lakers. Clippers, they're trying to get bigger as a team. They had so many issues guarding Jokic, and I can't imagine the issues they would have had guarding AD and LeBron. LeBron, I guess you have Kawhi for. PG's a good defender. But I don't think anyone on that team could have guarded Anthony Davis. Like, even now you have Serge to do that, but that's a bit more tough. You could argue the Bucks. That's where it gets interesting now as they added Drew Holiday. The Celtics, I don't think they're going to be able to do much this year. They need to get used to, like, they lost a few players that were key people, like Gordon Hayward was pretty important. They did lose Enes Kanter as well. Traded him away, I believe. So there's just not many teams who can really compete with the Lakers. Just a very up-tempo team on the fast break. And of course, LeBron right now, he's playing at an unbelievable level for his age. Like, arguably best player in the league. So it's going to be interesting to see what any teams are able to do to stop the Lakers. If there is going to be any issue with them, it's going to be the, roster turnover. You always want to keep a large amount of players there. But we saw they lost 5 players, and they are adding 4 or 5 new players. That's a whole third of your roster that's new players. But obviously they have LeBron, so it's not like you're going to be having issues with the leadership on that team. He is the leader of that team. So those are my thoughts on the Lakers. Let me know if you think the Lakers are going to repeat next season. Make sure to subscribe, leave a like, and have a great day.